L'Jarius Sneed is back from injury, and while I'm cautiously optimistic, this could be a massive deal for the Tennessee Titans, and I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. On today's show, we are going to break down the big news on Wednesday. L'Jarius Sneed activated from PUP. I'm going to talk about what it means for the Titans, but I got to tell you, I am going to be cautiously optimistic about this one. Also, we got to talk about Tennessee Titans practice on Wednesday, where Cam Ward threw 5 touchdown passes and was absolutely cooking. Also, we got to talk about a potential trade for the Tennessee Titans with some teams in the NFL looking for wide receiver. And if that doesn't make sense now, trust me, it will. I got injury updates for you guys as well. Before we dive into all of it, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. The Titans have a preseason game on Friday, their final one. I'll be previewing that on tomorrow's show, and then I'll be live here after the game finishes to break down everything you need to know. Roster predictions, 53-man roster cuts right around the corner. So much coming your way. Again, make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. With that being said, I have a need for Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed is back with the Tennessee Titans. He was activated off PUP on Wednesday and was at practice. He did some individual drills and things like that. The Titans are certainly going to work in L'Jarius Sneed slowly here. He said it himself after practice that he needs to get back into football condition. His conditioning will be the biggest thing that he needs to work on. And look, if you guys listened to the show yesterday, you know that I'm cautious about being excited about L'Jarius Sneed in any way. And I'll talk about why I'm apprehensive to get too excited here. But at the end of the day, this could be absolutely massive for the Tennessee Titans. Again, I'm going to go over all my reasons for caution. But let's be optimistic here to start the show. Let's talk about how this could go well for the Tennessee Titans. And at the end of the day, if we remember, just a year ago, we were all over the moon excited about L'Jarius Sneed. He had just come off being probably the best cornerback in the NFL in 2023. He was an eraser. We went over the stats at the time of everything that he did, the wide receiver ones all over the NFL. If that player, if 2023 L'Jarius Sneed is back, if that's the guy who shows up for the Tennessee Titans, this has a potential to not only transform the defense, but transform what this Tennessee Titans team is capable of. That has always been the case. If you have a full-blown lockdown number 1 top 5 cornerback in the NFL at one of your spots, and then you have a really, really solid year 2 player in Jarvis Brownlee Jr., and then you have one of the best slot cornerbacks in the NFL in Roger McCreary at slot corner. And then you have Amani Hooker, one of the best ball hawks in the NFL, back deep at safety with Xavier Woods, a physical, versatile, reliable, durable veteran. And then off the bench, you could come with a young gun like Kevin Winston, a guy in Quandre Diggs who is coming off an injury and is an older player, but Quandre Diggs was playing very well for the Titans last year. And he's your safety 4 now. Think about that secondary together. Darrell Baker is your number 1 outside corner. Your draft pick, Marcus Harris, is your number 2 backup behind Darrell Baker. Like, that is a pretty good secondary group. And the problem is that without L'Jarius Sneed, it falls apart. Because if you have that top tier number 1 cornerback, it slots everybody else in the same exact spot, in the place that they're supposed to be, that we just discussed. So not only is this massive or can be massive for the Titans because of what L'Jarius Sneed means for the defense. But think about the level of defense that you would get to and how much that would impact the offense. Imagine if you have Darrell Baker Jr. or rookie Marcus Harris as a starting cornerback for your team with what appears to be a number 2 right now in Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and a guy who we know has to be in the slot with Roger McCreary. Like, the domino effect of L'Jarius Sneed being back to full strength and back being the player that the Titans expected to get, that could be incredible for the Tennessee Titans. This is why I talked about L'Jarius Sneed being one of the 3 X-Factor players for the Titans this year. He is one of their 3 top X-Factor players. Because if they get a full-blown L'Jarius Sneed back in the lineup and healthy for a whole season, it does fundamentally change what the Tennessee Titans defense is capable of. And if you raise the ceiling of the defense enough, you're raising the ceiling of the entire team, especially with a rookie quarterback and a young offense with a lot of young weapons and a brand new offensive line. And we know that the defense should be ahead of the offense. So if the defense with L'Jarius Sneed can raise the ceiling of that side, it's going to raise the level of the entire team because they're going to need the defense to carry the weight sometimes with the youth on offense. So potential to absolutely fundamentally change what the Tennessee Titans are capable of this season. But here is where I'm cautiously optimistic. This is where, remember what we talked about yesterday? It was just on yesterday's show that I did a whole entire segment of L'Jarius Sneed's a ghost. You can't count on L'Jarius Sneed this year. They need to go forward talking about how to manage the roster in the future. Go forward as if L'Jarius Sneed's not going to be with the team after this year. Because after what they just went through over the last year and a half, how could you possibly count on L'Jarius Sneed? So that's what I was saying yesterday. And he gets activated from PUP today, and I thought it was interesting that some people were like, oh, you just said yesterday. Well, we still have no guarantees that L'Jarius Sneed's going to be back for week 1. He said that's his plan, and he's confident in himself, saying, oh, when I get back out on the field, you're going to see a brand new L'Jarius Sneed. I don't want to see a brand new L'Jarius Sneed. I want to see the old L'Jarius Sneed. I want to see the one from Kansas City. That's what I want, not a new L'Jarius Sneed. But here's my thing. We talked about how this can impact the Titans. I gave you your standard dose of optimism and happiness. But just because L'Jarius Sneed was activated off PUP doesn't mean that he's going to be ready for week 1. It doesn't mean that he's going to play up to the level of his contract. It doesn't mean that he's going to stay healthy all year long. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad that the health thing is resolved, but the legal situation where L'Jarius Sneed was in a car and someone opened fire at another car and at a car dealership, like that's going to a grand jury to decide if they're going to indict him or not. So the legal situation is still not resolved. I'm just saying we should be excited. We should be optimistic that L'Jarius Sneed can come back and be the player that he's being paid to be and that the Titans paid in trade value to get. But if you're taking L'Jarius Sneed being activated off PUP as, hey, now it's time to victory lap, L'Jarius Sneed is back. Well, I know that's internet culture for you, but that's just a little bit too quick on the victory lap, folks. Again, I would just say be cautiously optimistic. It's good that he's activated. It's good that he's saying the right things. But he also said 2.5 months ago is the healthiest he's ever been. And then he wasn't able to participate for 2.5 months. So, excited. They need him. They desperately need Sneed. But I'm just saying, keep your powder dry on this one. Don't get your hopes up too soon. For me, with L'Jarius Sneed, I want to see him on the field playing at a high level before I can believe that the Titans are out of this L'Jarius Sneed fog that they've been in. So I know people want to just get over the moon and freak out and all that, but I'm just saying, again, keep the powder dry on this one. Cautiously optimistic. Guard your heart, Titans fans, because just because he got activated on PUP doesn't mean that he's going to be worth his contract and play all 17 games. And sometimes people take one thing and try to make it mean other things, and it just doesn't mean that yet. So guard your heart, but at the end of the day, this is good news for the Tennessee Titans. And like I've said, he's an X-factor player. They absolutely need him to be the player that he's being paid to be. And until I see him do that out on the football field, I'm sorry, my optimism level is going to stay at a normal rate. But with that being said, you want real hype. Cam Ward was cooking at practice on Wednesday. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is going to give you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, you're eyeing a long shot division winner, you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1, doesn't matter. This is your moment. You can take a flyer on Cam Ward to win MVP, take a long shot on the Tennessee Titans to win the Super Bowl, or if you want to be a little less risque, you could maybe just pick the Titans as a division-winning dark horse. Either way, make sure that you visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, talking about everything you need to know from the Wednesday that was for the Tennessee Titans. Sneed is back. We talked about why you should be cautiously optimistic about that. We do want to talk about Cam Ward cooking in practice on Wednesday, 5 touchdown passes. I'll get into that. Also, we're going to talk about a potential Van Jefferson trade because there's a lot of wide receiver needy teams out there. And I think it might make sense for the roster math. Now, before we get into Cam Ward cooking, do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. But Cam Ward again went off in practice on Wednesday. Multiple reports out there. Multiple reports indicating how great of a day Cam Ward had. I saw my guy Parker Kelly and Jim White always breaks it down. Teron Davenport, of course, with the great takeaways after practice. But it didn't matter where you looked. Everyone was saying how great of a day Cam Ward had. He had, again, 5 touchdown passes. A couple of those came in 7-on-7 drills, with one to Chigakonkwo, one to Bryce Oliver. The Bryce Oliver catch, the Titans put that up on social media. Moss, the defensive back, it was Darrell Baker, just goes up, grabs it, taps the feet. It is as beautiful of a sideline red zone 7-on-7 catch as you're going to find with 2 hands, I would say. Maybe some incredible one-handers, but great catch by Bryce Oliver on a touchdown, and Cam Ward. It was a back shoulder fade to Bryce Oliver, and Cam took one step and just threw a perfect ball. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to watch. And that's the type of stuff. Cam is going to dial that stuff in as he gets more confident. He gets more comfortable. And he talked about that from a playbook standpoint. We'll talk about that in just a second, but to continue. Team drills. Hits Chigakonkwo on a seam route. Hits Josh Wiley, Tony Pollard, Chigakonkwo, again, all in a row. Boom, 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 lighting it up. Gets into another team period. Big completion to Van Jefferson, who has had back-to-back good days of practice. Do you hear that? Do you hear that, NFL? Good days of practice from Van Jefferson. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But completion to Bryce Oliver. Completion to Chim Dike as well. Chim Dike makes a catch on the sideline. Then you get the team red zone period, down in the red zone, low red zone team period, and Cam just starts to go. Tyler Lockett, touchdown. Van Jefferson, touchdown. DK, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Cam was cooking. Now, there was an overthrow on a deep route to Josh Wiley that I saw reported. There was another throw to Alec Manor that was a little bit off target. So was he absolutely perfect on every single throw? No. But this is what you want to hear from Cam Ward. This is what we wanted to see. Yeah, there were struggle practices early on, and Brian Callahan talked about how he wanted those practices to be a struggle. He wanted it to be as hard as possible for Cam Ward going into the regular season so that when he gets there, he's not shocked. Now, look, tough situations in practice where you can't be hit are going to be different than tough situations against the Denver Broncos. Make no mistake about it. There's no doubt there. It's going to be much more different, the tough situations. But they're trying to get Cam Ward as prepared as possible, and it's starting to pay off with the comfortability level. And I thought one of the things that Cam Ward said after practice that I found very, very interesting, he talked about how he basically feels like he knows the playbook now. Still a ways to go, of course, but he feels like he understands the fundamental aspect of the offense and has command of the full offense at this point. I found that quote, it's much more exciting, and you guys all go crazy when I talk about the practice stats. And he was 10 for 17 with 5 touchdowns, and he threw passes to this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy. But I know that gets you guys going. But what gets me going is hearing Cam Ward talk about the playbook and how much more comfortable he feels with the playbook and how he's got it down on a foundational level. And once they start game planning individually for teams, that's going to change. They're going to have to put in new plays, and they're going to have to, vary some of the way that they run certain plays to attack certain defenses, certain schemes and philosophies. The playbook isn't just set in stone at all times. It's ever evolving, right? It's ever evolving. So you can never truly have a full grasp on a playbook that never stops. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if you know the fundamentals, it's how I feel about cooking. If you can make a good sauce, you got a nice little bit of butter to deglaze, get you a wooden spoon, scrape off the fond, throw in a little bit of that chicken broth, let that simmer a little bit, reduce in half, come in with the heavy cream, all right, just a little cracked pepper, a little salt. You got yourself a pretty decent sauce. That can be the base of any kind of sauce. Now you want to throw in some shallots. Now you want to throw in some sauteed mushrooms. Now you want to throw in a little bit of dried thyme, some herbs. You want to throw in a little dash of hot sauce. You want to make it something different. If you have a base, you always feel more comfortable changing the recipe going forward to suit individual needs. And that's what the Tennessee Titans can do right now. Cam Ward has his base sauce figured out. And from there, you can plus it in any way you want. And I think we're going to see Cam Ward a little bit in this final preseason game. It sounds like most of the starters will play, and we'll talk about that more in tomorrow's preview show. But Cam Ward getting more comfortable out on the practice field, starting to really show it. And I think, again, some people made it a negative thing. Some people made it a bad thing, and the players had to respond, and Big Jeff had to give a statement, and they asked Cam Ward about it after practice on Wednesday. But that quote-unquote fight, the little scuffle between Big Jeff and Cam Ward, I can't help it, guys. I think that was a moment. That was a moment for Cam Ward. Cam Ward throws a touchdown pass in the back of the end zone, feeling himself a little bit, a little swagger, hits him with the Cam Ward celly, pushes Big Jeff in the back. Cam Ward's feeling himself. He feels comfortable. He feels confident. I think these things all tie together. I think Cam Ward's confidence to do something like that, not just talk back when Jeff talks at him, but I'm going at Jeff to let him know. Suck it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm letting you know. Take some of that, buddy. The confidence not just to respond, but to instigate your teammates. You're that comfortable. You feel like your team has your back. You can go up to the defensive leader, to the leader of the team the last few years, and give him some. That's comfortability. That's starting to feel confident. And then you respond after that with a 5-touchdown day where you look like you're in total command, you're cool, you're calm, you're collected. And then you follow that afterwards saying, me and Big Jeff are good. That's my dog. And he said, they asked him, what'd you learn after your interaction with Big Jeff? And he said, that Big Jeff is strong as crap. And I edited it for you guys because I know kids listen. And I got you. Don't worry. I'm never gonna shock you parents out there riding in the car with your kids with something wild. But he said, Big Jeff, strong as crap. That's what I learned. It's just what I find is, and I hate to be rude to people in the media also, but I feel like there are a lot of people who cover the team who didn't have a hyper-competitive attitude growing up, or maybe that didn't play sports. There's some people on the beat that, were in band and stuff that didn't even play football. And I don't like to be like, oh, you didn't play, guy, because I only played high school football. A college football player, an NFL football player could all look at me and say, you don't know what you're talking about because you only played in high school and I played higher. So I'm not trying to be like, I played football and they didn't, blah, blah. But I'm just saying that people who didn't grow up in a hyper-competitive environment with super uber competitive friends or brothers or sisters or a family in general, if you didn't grow up in sports in that hyper-competitive environment, you may not understand. Like me and my best friend, me and my brother could play one-on-one basketball against each other, and I'm calling him every name in the book. You're soft, you're this, you're that, F you, blah, this and that. Oh, you're weak, get that trash out of here. Like, that's just how me and my friends speak to each other. So, to me, my reaction when I saw the fight between Jeff and Cam was, this is awesome. Get fired up. I love hyper-competitive athletes giving it to one another in a healthy way in training camp. Like, I love this. I live for this. This is what I'm talking about. And a lot of people in the media clutch their oh, no, Jeffrey Simmons was out of control. Oh, don't touch the quarterback. Oh, this is unacceptable. Oh, he had to be escorted out of practice. But there's a lot of pearl clutching in the media. And I'm just like, did you guys ever play ball? Did you ever get in fights with your friends on the playground? Did you ever call your best friend soft or, tell him he's a sissy or anything after him missing a tackle on you in tackle football? Did you ever score a layup and tell him you suck? You know what I mean? Like, I guess just the way that people respond to things that we see in the game of football, I'm surprised that, Brian Callahan said, I'm not going to throw a guy out of training camp practice for a little pushing and shoving and cussing. He's like, I don't know if you guys have been around the NFL, but that's not something to throw a player out for in my experience where I've been. And it's like, oh, maybe not. It seems like a lot of people locally just don't understand hyper-competitive environments and what's normal and what's not normal. So they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. What an interaction. That was so intense. And the players are just like, yeah, it was fun. We were at practice talking crap, Like, it's just normal to hyper-competitive people, and people who aren't used to hyper-competitive environments may not think that sort of intensity is as normal. So I love everything we're hearing from Cam Ward this week, going at Big Jeff, his answer about the playbook, how he's performed in practice. He really does seem like he's taking those steps forward that we wanted to see from him as we get closer to the regular season. But with that in mind, there's a lot of teams out there in the NFL that want a wide receiver, and I'm the Titans. I got a veteran wide receiver, and I got a used van for sale right here. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. For me personally, I didn't realize how much money I was spending on online shopping, and then I got Monarch, and now I can see how my spending is broken down, and it gives me a way better opportunity to manage my money. You should not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Make sure that you use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNFL. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We have talked about L'Jarius Sneed's return and why I'm cautiously optimistic about that one. We talked about Cam Ward's performance in practice on Wednesday, his growth as a player so far, been absolutely fantastic. But now we got to talk trades. Because again, a lot of teams out there in the NFL are looking for a wide receiver, and I think the Titans have the right one on the lot. Now, before we get into that, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. NFL fantasy draft season is right around the corner, so make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Football. You got host Vinny Iyer and my girl Michelle Majuk, the data queen, who also hosts with me on Locked On NFL. They're going to get you ready for your fantasy draft every single day with prep information. Make sure that you're the most informed fantasy manager so that you can take home your league's trophy this year. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. But the Jets, the 49ers, the Vikings, all have been reported as very, very interested in the trade market for wide receivers. We just saw the New Orleans Saints make an insane trade for Devon Vele from the Broncos for like a 4th-round pick, something like that. It's insane. He's got 400 career passing yards for a 4th-round pick. I mean, I think Vele is an underrated player too, but, hey. Now, if Devon Vele can get a 4th-round pick, even with a massive overpay from the New Orleans Saints, if Devon Vele can get a 4th-round pick, the Titans can get a 6th-round pick out of Van Jefferson. Van Jefferson is a consummate professional. Van Jefferson has been around for forever, all right? Van Jefferson is a guy that can play all spots, that is, again, a veteran professional guy who's going to be reliable and be out there. If you're a contending team and you want to get a solid veteran receiver for way cheaper than Devon Vele, call Mike Borgonzi about Van Jefferson. Now, I know there are some people out there who will say this, but Cam Ward needs all the help that he can get. Why would we trade Van Jefferson away? Well, here's what I would tell you. Start doing the roster math. Ridley, Lockett, Io Manor, DK, Bryce Oliver. And did you hear Bones Fossil in his press conference on Wednesday? If you didn't, that's why you're here with me, of course. But Bones Fossil said that they're not exactly confident in Chim DK as their punt returner yet. And if that's the case, then that means that James Prochet is the punt returner. So James Prochet, that's 6 guys. That's 6 guys. Without Van Jefferson, that's 6 right there. Where does that leave Xavier Restrepo? So the question is, would you rather keep Xavier Restrepo and get a 7th or 6th round pick for Van Jefferson? Or would you rather keep Van Jefferson and cut Xavier Restrepo and hope that you can get him back on practice squad where he could still be stolen at any time by another team? Van Jefferson in a 7th, let's make it as bad as possible, a conditional 7th rounder. Van Jefferson in a 7th, or Van Jefferson and cut Xavier Restrepo, or Xavier Restrepo in a 7th. What do you want to do with the 6th spot? Now, there's no guarantee that a trade will be available for the Titans. There's no guarantee that someone would give them something for Van Jefferson. That's not Gabe Davis is still out on the market. Why wouldn't you just go sign Gabe Davis rather than give a pick for Van Jefferson, in my opinion? But at the end of the day, we don't know for certain. And maybe that'll make sense for a team. And I'm just saying, if one of these wide receiver needy teams, because I saw someone in the comment, dead inside, well, boy, I know how you feel this week. But he says here, saw something where we could take a chance on Sky Moore. Sky Moore was a former 1st-round pick wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs who's probably going to be cut. Now, it's probably because he's not any good, and he's not going to be any good with the Titans either. But, think about that. Now you're talking about claiming people off waivers at wide receiver off other teams. Where are you getting that room from? 7 wide receivers are already locked in. So, if they want to keep Ridley, Lockett, Io, DK, Restrepo, or Oliver, Prochet, if they want to keep those 6 guys, Van Jefferson's the odd man out. Now, the problem is that Van Jefferson is one of the only big wide receivers. If they don't have Van Jefferson, there is nobody else who could play the X wide receiver spot except Alec Io Manor. And I want Io to play a ton over Van Jefferson anyways. But nonetheless, depth is important. Depth is super important. So, it's a tough spot for the Titans to be in. I'm just saying, I think the path of trading Van Jefferson if possible, opens up way more on the roster than keeping Van Jefferson, who I'm just not overly enamored with. He's just another guy. There are, 50 Van Jeffersons in the NFL right now. So I'm just not that worried about it. But let me know whether you would trade Van Jefferson as well. Very, very interested. Injury update. Still no Latham, still no Ridley. Not good. Managing soreness. Well, it's 2 straight days a miss. So hopefully everything's okay there. Still no Winston and Sweat as well. So that's the big 4 right now that we really are going to care about. Latham, Ridley, Winston, Sweat. And they need all 4 of them desperately. But that's going to do it for me today, folks. Again, I'm going to have a game preview for you guys tomorrow. I'm going to have instant reaction live here on the Locked On Titans YouTube channel after the game ends on Friday night. I know I was a little late tonight releasing things on YouTube. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Definitely do appreciate it. But again, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.